The blaze started in the mid-afternoon and spread at terrifying speed. A government housing complex in a northern suburb close to the border with China quickly consumed. 7 of its 8 tower blocks set alight. Bamboo scaffolding acting both as kindling and as a constant threat to firefighters and ambulance crews.
Block 5's already gone. It's a raging inferno. Sparks were flying everywhere. Our side caught fire too.
There are 2,000 apartments in the towers which opened more than 40 years ago. A major maintenance program began last year. Since then, Hong Kong's government has announced a phase-out of bamboo scaffolding owing to its danger, ordering at least 50% of public construction to use metal instead. The number killed in this disaster has risen through the day, and this evening Hong Kong's government said nearly 300 people remained uncontactable. China's president sending condolences and ordering an all-out effort to put out the fire and minimize loss of life.
Why is there no one saving them? I know someone who has young children and elderly family members. I called him and he said he was still trapped inside the building.
The temperature inside the buildings concerned are very high, so it's quite difficult for us to enter the building and go upstairs.
More than 12 hours on, Hong Kong's chief executive says the fire is coming under control. The full extent of this disaster, though, won't be known for some time still.
Возник тот перечень возможных договоренностей из 28 пунктов. И, как я уже объявлял публично, он нам по определенным каналам был передан. Мы с ним ознакомились. После этого состоялись переговоры в Женеве между американской делегацией и украинской делегацией. И они, я так понял, между собой решили, что все эти 28 пунктов нужно разделить на 4 составляющих отдельных. В целом, да, и нам это все было передано. В целом мы согласны, что это может быть положено в основу будущих договоренностей. Но было бы с моей стороны невежливо сейчас вот говорить о каких-то окончательных вариантах, но поскольку их нет. Некоторые вещи, они носят принципиальный характер, и в целом мы видим, что американская сторона учитывает в чем-то учитывает нашу позицию, которая обсуждалась до Анкориджа и после Аляски. Где-то нам точно совершенно нужно садиться и серьезно обсуждать какие-то конкретные вещи. Нужно все положить на дипломатический язык, потому что одно дело, в общем, сказать, что Россия не собирается нападать на Европу. Это для нас звучит смешно, правда? Никогда не собирались, но если они хотят услышать от нас, ну давайте мы это зафиксируем. Вопросов нет.
crash and they swear.
Oh, okay. That's all. Any handcuffed there?
Yeah. He's a cop.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We have an absolute bombshell dropping on Capitol Hill right now that could change everything. According to a stunning new report from Jake Sherman at Punchbowl News, we could be seeing a wave of explosive resignations from House Republicans very soon. And guys, the implications here are massive. It means Speaker Mike Johnson could actually lose the gavel before we even get to November. Here is what we know right now. Sherman spoke directly with a senior Republican who is absolutely furious. They are claiming the White House team has treated members like garbage and that Mike Johnson just let it happen because he wanted it to. This source says members already know they are going into the minority after the midterms, so they are checking out early. But it gets even crazier. The report describes the situation as a tinderbox and says morale has never been lower. We are talking about a total collapse. The senior Republican explicitly stated Mike Johnson will be stripped of his gavel and they will lose the majority before this term is out. And we are already seeing the first domino fall. Marjorie Taylor.
อย่าดูหน้าพี่นะรถจากคะแนนนะดู
โอ๊ยเขาต้นตอกว่า
President Donald Trump, in the last half hour, has announced that one of the National Guard members shot near the White House on Wednesday has passed away. The U.S. president says 20-year-old National Guardswoman Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia died in hospital with her family by her side. He added that the second National Guard member who was shot, 24-year-old Andrew Wolf, is fighting for his life. He also says the alleged shooter remains in a serious condition. Now, that shooting happened just blocks from the White House in Washington, D.C. The suspect drove across the country from Washington state, allegedly to carry out the attack.
Olivia Dean has managed to get a partial refund for some of her fans who bought resale tickets for way over the original price. Last week, the singer wrote an open letter to ticketing companies calling the practice vile and disgusting after some resale tickets for her North American tour were listed at more than 14 times their original value, with prices rising above $1,000. That's 750 quid. In response, both Ticketmaster and Access are now paying some of the money back. The CEO of Live Nation Entertainment, which is the parent company of Ticketmaster, said they share Olivia's desire to keep live music accessible and that they've taken steps to lead by example. Ticketmaster also announced it would cap future resale rates for Dean's tour, which is on offer to artists already, but it appears that option did not come into play when Dean's tour initially.
Breaking news this morning, there's a video going viral on social media about a deadly drink poisoning our livers that most of us drink daily. Just watch.
There's a drink that's more dangerous for your liver than soda, beer, and wine combined, yet millions of people still drink it every day. If you're one of them, it's not your fault because you got manipulated by the mainstream media into thinking it's harmless. It's a drink that's made in a chemical factory. It's highly toxic to your liver cells. It's loaded with high fructose corn syrup, the worst synthetic sugar you can consume. Your liver treats it like a poison, causing inflammation and breaking it down into fat. On top of that, it's packed with caffeine that spikes liver enzymes, forcing your liver to work overtime just to detoxify. And if that wasn't enough, it's filled with preservatives like sodium benzoate, which can actually turn into benzene, a known toxin. If you still don't know which drink I'm talking about, it's any kind of energy drink. A lot of people don't realize how much stress these drinks put on the liver.
NBC's already apologized, but Dowd should be fired immediately because it's traitors like that who make it easier to get murdered. Charlie wasn't president. He wasn't even a politician. He was a young political star defending American freedoms, especially the freedom of speech. And if guys like Charlie are targets for assassination, we all are. Charlie Kirk's just like you and me. We speak our minds. We speak from the heart. We tell the truth because we believe in the country and everything that it was founded on. Charlie had the spirit of our founders, full of energy, passion, conviction, and an unrelenting pursuit of happiness. Charlie was always happy. You never saw the guy down. He loved what he did, and he never stopped working and fighting and pushing and persuading. Charlie Kirk grew up in the Chicago suburbs. Great athlete, good family. Dropped out of college to join the Tea Party and start a movement. He set up systems to watch professors and stop their indoctrination. Then he built up chapters across the country on campuses and launched Turning Point USA, creating the largest and best organized political mission for young Americans ever.
We have some breaking news we're following. This is out of Washington, as just in the last hour, termination notices were expected to begin hitting inboxes of thousands of State Department employees as part of the Trump administration's efforts to drastically shrink the federal government. We're going to bring back NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba on this. Monica, what do we know? What do we not know about these terminations?
Well, Alex, we know that the termination notices were supposed to go out starting around 10 a.m. and that likely they would roll out for a couple of hours due to how slow the internal State Department email system is. So this is a situation where many State Department employees yesterday were put on alert. We're told that today they could be getting that kind of information. So to be prepared for that and to come to work with everything, they might need to return before leaving the State Department for the last time today. And we're talking about civil servants in addition to Foreign Service officers. As many as 3,000 cuts expected today. And it's not just all layoffs necessarily. Some people were offered the opportunity to take early retirement, for instance. But this is all a part of the Trump administration's effort to cut some of these agencies, with the Department of Government Efficiency trying to essentially make a mandate for these different agencies to completely reorganize or to have what's known as a RIF, a reduction in force. And this is something that the Supreme Court paved the way for to take place. And so the State Department is where we're seeing a very concentrated example of that today.
Do you all wash in that room?
Trafficked and exploited and living in unbearable squalor.
Outside. Cold?
8 Romanians who came to Britain in late 2020 on the promise of a job, but kept as slaves, working in a car wash for this man, Kurdish translator, 45-year-old Hewa Margai, from Mitcham in South London. Now he's been sent to jail for 8.5 years after a 5-year investigation by the Met Police's modern slavery unit. They arrived by bus expecting somewhere to live, food to eat and fair pay in return for work. Instead, they were packed into a small room on site, their ID taken away, routinely subjected to physical, mental and psychological abuse.
They've got an outside toilet with a shower in the toilet. It's about this big and there's like no warmth in there at all, so they literally must shower in the freezing cold.
Magari's youngest victim was only 15. After a few months, he raised the alarm and police turned up the same day. They also found 2 women and 5 men, all in their late teens, 20s and 30s. Sentencing Margai, the judge said, "You intended them to live in this squalor and you intended to profit from it. Without their cards, they were effectively your captives and you knew it." All 8 have since returned home to Romania, while their captor faces a long stretch behind bars.
Some breaking news to bring you in the last few moments. A 76-year-old British national is missing after entering the water from a cruise ship. This has been confirmed by both the cruise ship operator and also the Coast Guard that operates in the waters around Tenerife in the Canary Islands. He went overboard yesterday, and we understand that today the search has resumed from early this morning with both a helicopter and a patrol boat. But the 76-year-old, no information about the circumstances on which he went overboard, but he remains missing and the Coast Guard is looking for him.
So do you accept that this is a breach of your manifesto?
No. We promised.
Well, why not?
Because we also promised in the manifesto that we would bring people together, that this would not be legislation that pits one side against another. It would not be zero-sum. This was a piece of legislation that would lead to more harmony and engagement in the workplace, increased productivity in the workplace, never pitting one side against another.
But it is your job to deliver on a manifesto that people voted for, and this was explicitly in the manifesto, and now you are breaking that manifesto pledge. Don't you accept that?
Well, the manifesto committed to day one rights. We are delivering day one rights.
But not on everything.
The manifesto committed us to finding compromise and to find ways that we would never pit employers against employees, and we are delivering on that. And today, you haven't just seen the manifesto being delivered, you've seen it in action, bringing together unions and bringing together them with employers to find solutions to the things that are holding Britain back. This is the manifesto in action. It is not the manifesto being broken.
Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away.
She was one of two guardsmen who was shot. The other was Andrew Wolfe. He's 24 and he's still in a critical condition fighting for his life. Now, the shooting happened while the pair were on patrol near the White House. The suspected shooter is a man from Afghanistan. He's believed to have worked for the CIA during the US deployment there. The attack is being politicized by the White House as an immigration issue, with Trump blaming Biden's immigration policies. This morning, he said he's going to impose a permanent pause on migration from what he has again called third world countries.
The aftermath of this shooting will be really interesting, and what Donald Trump does next. He's called it a major national security threat, and so politically we may see real changes to immigration in the aftermath of this shooting.
It's sickening, yeah. If you add it over time, it's going to be quite a lot.
We should all pay more tax, to be fair.
On the Sky News app, you can see exactly how the measures announced in yesterday's budget will affect you, with calculators for both income tax and pensions. On the personal tax calculator, for instance, if we plug in the average UK salary, £39,000, it will tell you what you're paying now in income tax and exactly how that's likely to change, with thresholds being frozen. Here in Altrincham, they elected a Labour MP at the last election, the first time it's changed from Conservative in more than 100 years. So do voters here feel like promises have been kept?
I think everyone's going to take a hit, and income tax is fairly fair across the board, but it is frustrating when you feel like you're already taxed to the hilt already.
How do you feel about the fact that Labour said we're not going to raise taxes on working people ahead of the budget?
I feel like they're in a mess and they have to do something, and if they don't raise it and the economy doesn't get going, it's suicide for them, and if they raise it, it's suicide for them as well. I think they're in trouble.
Not surprised by it, but still appalled, and makes me feel like, what is the point? Why do people have any pride for being British? Why do people have any pride for this country whatsoever? The party is just really paying lip service to what it used to be. I think it's a front for behaving more conservatively. Younger voters who are more politically aware, and we've all grown up having to have like hospitality jobs, retail jobs that are a lot more low paid, and I think Labour has done this thing of trying to appeal to those people, and now they're in power doing absolutely nothing at all to help any of them. Hence everyone's voting Green, and I'll be there. I wouldn't vote Tories over my dead body, quite genuinely.
No Labour for you at the next election either then?
No, absolutely not, no. So I'm losing £215 a year, well, £215, which is not any money anyway, I'm barely paid anything as it is. And then to be told that you're losing that as well, what am I actually gaining from the budget this year?
And obviously there was this promise where they said we're not going to raise taxes on working people. They would argue they technically aren't raising taxes, they're just freezing the thresholds. What do you think?
If you want to be clever about words, yes, but the ultimate effect is fiscal drag. We all know it, we'll experience it. And then you look at things like the ISA being scrapped. £12,000 to put down on a house when property prices are higher than they've ever been, from £20,000, and people still have second homes. At what level of anything can you call that? In a modern developed country, it's sickening, yeah.
I think as a country we should pay more tax, and then we'd get better services, so I don't really mind.
Is that more than you were expecting, or not too bad?
Not too bad, not too bad. Probably because I'm in a position that I can afford to pay more tax to get more tax in. Otherwise, how do they run the country? How do they pay for things? Simple as that, yeah.
Justin simply says, is the government now trying to gaslight us concerning tax rises?
Well, I think the answer to that is no, because she said, yes, we have had to ask everyone to pay a bit more, but we've made sure that the people who pay the most are those who are most in a position to do that. You know, whether it's landlords having to pay extra tax on their rental income, whether it's people living in large houses, whether it's people making large pension contributions.
I want to answer Justin's question. Are they gaslighting you on tax rises? I would say yes. Harriet said no.
I would say yes, because they promise you wouldn't raise your taxes. You're paying more tax. Everybody's paying more tax. They're taxing the country by tens of billions more than they said they would. That is clearly, and it's not just that they did that, but it's then they're now arguing that they didn't break the manifesto by doing it, when it clearly they didn't say that they would, and they argued in all of the debates that they wouldn't. So I would say yes, but it doesn't matter what Harriet thinks, and it doesn't matter what I think. It's what the public thinks. Will the public give the Chancellor and the Prime Minister the benefit of the doubt on this?
Well,
and I'm struggling to see that they will.
Some good news, you're probably not addicted to Instagram, but if you think you are, it might be because of people like me. There's some new research that's just come out of the US that shows that Instagram users overestimate how addicted they are to social media. In fact, almost all of the people who thought their excessive scrolling was caused by social media addiction had actually just developed bad habits, which is good news because habits are much easier to break than addictions. The thing is, journalists might partly be to blame for people thinking that they're addicted to social media. When the researchers reviewed news articles that mentioned social media use, they found more than 4,000 that described a social media addiction and just 50 that described a social media habit. And that had a direct impact on how in control people felt. When the researchers tested Instagram users, they found that if they'd been told that social media use was an addiction, they felt less in control of their scrolling and were more likely to blame Instagram or themselves for excessive social media use. But the good news is, if you do want to cut down on your screen time, it might just be as simple as changing a habit.
This particular trip to Turkey and to Lebanon has, as you know, first of all, the very meaning of unity, celebrating 1700 years from the Council of Nicaea. And I very much have been looking forward to this trip because of what it means for all Christians.
Today, more than ever, we need people who will promote dialogue and practice it with firm will and patient resolve. In the aftermath of the tragedies of 2 world wars, which saw the building of large international organizations, we are now experiencing a phase marked by heightened level of conflict on the global level, fueled by prevailing strategies of economic and military power. This is enabling what Pope Francis called a 3rd world war fought piecemeal. We must in no way give in to this. The future of humanity is at stake.
The alarm was all off because of the renovation of the outside. So there's no alarm to let all the people know. Many old people, elder people, they were all having an afternoon sleep.
Nobody knows.
So nobody knows. Once they know the fire has already burned down everything and they cannot escape, they were all trapped in the house. This is a disaster, actually.
How do you feel this morning looking at this?
Feel sadness and hopeless, and don't know what going to do. You know, cannot describe. So sad.
I'm sorry.
Well, a day after the shooting, this is the spot here in Washington, D.C., where the two National Guard were hit. No longer a crime scene. The focus has moved elsewhere, and there have been significant updates through the day.
It is an ongoing investigation of terrorism. Make no mistake about it.
So what do we know about the gunman? Well, he is Rahmanullah Lakhanwal, 29 years old and from Afghanistan. He arrived in the US in 2021, among thousands of others, as part of a visa scheme under former President Biden. He had worked, we're told, for the US military in Afghanistan. That's not unusual. He'd also worked for a CIA-backed unit, as many did.
There is confirmation now that the subject had a relationship in Afghanistan with partner forces. We are fully investigating that aspect of his background as well.
Now, he'd been living, we're told, in Washington state on the other side of the country with his wife and, the authorities think, 5 children. He'd driven all the way from Washington state to here in Washington, D.C. That's a 2-day drive in order to carry out the shooting. The investigation is ongoing into his background and, of course, the motive. Searches have been carried out at his home, items taken away too, and the trail has led the authorities to San Diego in California as well. It's not quite clear why. We've also had an update on the 2 people who were shot. They are Sarah Backstrom, 20 years old, and Andrew Wolf, 24, both from West Virginia, part of the West Virginia National Guard, deployed here to the Capitol as part of President Trump's crime-fighting drive. They were on patrol just over there when a gunman approached them and opened fire. We now know that he was carrying a Smith & Wesson revolver, a handgun capable of carrying 6 rounds. We're told he shot one of the National Guard twice before turning his weapon to the other. It was close range. He then was shot himself and is now in custody in hospital. Now, of course, behind all this is a political storm. President Trump's deployment of the National Guard has been deeply controversial and deemed unconstitutional too. It is an issue that the Trump-appointed district attorney was pushed on at the news conference.
There are people who are also upset with the president believing that the National Guard members should not even have been there if it were not for the executive order.
I don't even want to talk about whether they should have been there. We ought to kiss the ground and thank God that the president said it's time to bring in more law enforcement to make sure that a city that had the 4th highest homicide rate in the country was that violence was quelled. I'm not even going to go there.
And now, of course, on top of all that, revelations that the gunman was part of a Biden-era visa scheme, which was criticised then and is now once again. A shocking shooting, a massive political storm.
President Macron wants a new generation to be ready to fight for France. But after one general warned that parents should be ready to lose their children in a future war, just how willing will people be to join? In response to rising Russian aggression, President Macron has announced France is bringing in a new military national service. It's voluntary, aimed at over 18s, and will start next summer. The plan is to have 10,000 new young recruits by 2030.
Il existe une génération prête à se lever pour la patrie.
To be clear, this isn't a return to conscription, which is mandatory. That was scrapped in the 1990s by Jacques Chirac. Instead, Macron said people who didn't volunteer would only be called up in times of crisis. He also reassured worried parents that their children will do national service at home, so won't, for example, be sent to fight in Ukraine. But this is about building a force to help protect France.
Nous devons montrer que nous ne sommes pas faibles avec la puissance qui nous menace.
Macron's new move comes after France's top general warned parents must be willing to lose their children if war broke out.
Si notre pays flanche parce qu'il n'est pas prêt à accepter de perdre ses enfants, parce qu'il faut dire les choses, de souffrir économiquement parce que les priorités iront à de la production de défense, par exemple. Si on n'est pas prêt à ça, alors on est en risque.
France has the second largest military in the EU after Poland, and a recent survey found 3 in 4 French people actually back voluntary national service. But what about the rest of Europe? The war in Ukraine has forced many European powers to reprioritise defence. Military chiefs have repeatedly warned that Russia could attack a NATO country by 2030. That's despite Moscow's denials. 10 EU countries already have compulsory military service, while others like Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany are opting for voluntary schemes. Now, Germany's massively boosted defence spending, with the Chancellor pledging to build the strongest conventional army in Europe. And Parliament's expected to vote on the military service plan in December. So this is just one of the ways that Ukraine's European allies are responding to the threat from Russia at a time when they're no longer sure they can count on the US for defence.
Vladimir Putin has given his first reaction to the latest US peace plan for Ukraine. So, will Russia agree to it? Well, on the one hand, he sounded pretty positive. He said that Russia is ready for serious discussions, and he said that the current proposal can be used as a basis for future agreements.
Согласны, что это может быть положено в основу будущих договоренностей. Но было бы с моей стороны невежливо сейчас вот говорить о каких-то окончательных вариантах, но поскольку их нет.
But on the other hand, he also made it clear that there are several strings still attached before Russia says yes. Firstly, he said he's not going to sign any agreement with the current Ukrainian leadership. He regards Volodymyr Zelensky as an illegitimate president, and therefore he claims any deal signed with him wouldn't be legally possible. Secondly, on territory, he referred to the recognition of Crimea and the Donbass as Russian as a key point in the negotiations. Now, remember, Ukraine got that point removed from the initial draft proposal. It sounds like Putin wants to put it back in. And thirdly, on Ukraine's and Europe's demands for a ceasefire, he had a pretty pointed warning. Listen to this.
Войска Украины уйдут из занимаемых ими территорий, вот тогда и прекратятся боевые действия. Не уйдут, мы добьемся этого вооруженным путем.
And to me, this really shows that despite all Vladimir Putin's talk of peace, Russia only wants peace if it's on its terms. Russia's demands, all of them, it sounds like remain undiluted. So when US envoy Steve Witkoff comes to Moscow again next week to seek Russia's approval on this peace plan, I think we know what the Kremlin's answer will be. Yes, but.
Major news: Donald Trump is ending migration into the United States from all third world countries. And he has not specified what that means, but presumably it means other countries that he deems as not good. And he wants this to happen to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country. And he's going to be ending all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize people who have become citizens, and deport any foreign national who is a public security risk or non-compatible with Western civilization. So this is a big change, because as it stands, we do welcome immigrants, but apparently that will not be the case anymore.
Не могу я спать, хочется опять заново начать. Мой мелатонин без тебя один, капли на груди, смятая кровать. Не могу я спать, не могу я спать, хочется опять небу рассказать. Мой мелатонин без тебя один, капли на груди, смятая кровать. After sex in the morning, we в объятиях тонем.